The afternoon sun slipped through stained glass like liquid gold, painting the church in colors too tender to belong to this world. Every flicker of light landed softly upon her gown, white silk shimmering as if woven from starlight, each bead catching fire under the glow. She stood there, Katerina, a vision so delicate that even silence seemed to kneel before her. But beneath the beauty of that moment, beneath the fragile dream of vows and promises, there stirred a pulse, a hidden current, something unsaid and unresolved that wrapped itself around her heart with quiet insistence. It was not fear. No, it was the familiar awareness of a soul trained to survive storms, a heart that once walked through shadows and learned to breathe in fire. Even as Michael's warm, calloused hands held her steady, her eyes lingered on the edges of the world, where doors could open and secrets could spill like ash into sunlight. The congregation saw only love, saw only the glowing bride and her steadfast groom, but inside her memories moved like ghosts. The war-torn cities she had once crossed, the long nights of waiting for dawn with nothing but her heartbeat to remind her she was alive, the whispered code words that had been carved into her veins like a second language. 3 years she had hidden them all away, wrapped them in the soft fabric of ordinary life, replaced gunmetal with coffee spoons, exchanged silence for laughter. Yet here, as bells chimed and voices rose in holy blessing, a single glance toward the back of the chapel was enough to remind her the shadows had never left. They simply waited. She smiled, radiant, because that is what brides are meant to do. And Michael believed in that smile with every fiber of his being. He believed in the woman who painted their home with light, who sat on porches watching sunsets, who laughed at his clumsy jokes until he loved her more than he thought possible. He had chosen her, not for the mysteries she carried, but for the warmth she offered. And in his brown eyes there was nothing but devotion, the kind of love that heals wounds so deep they seem untouchable. For one fragile heartbeat, she almost believed the past would never knock again. She almost believed that the universe would be merciful enough to let her keep this peace forever. Yet life has its way of weaving light with shadow, stitching tenderness with danger, love with destiny. And so, when the doors of the chapel creaked open and a figure slipped quietly inside, dressed in black too sharp for celebration, her body recognized the truth before her heart could protest. Her breath did not falter, her posture did not break, but deep within, a flame reawakened. The past had come for her in the moment she tried to walk into forever, and though every cell of her being longed to stay in Michael's embrace, every instinct screamed that forever would not wait, not today. Her heart trembled between two worlds, the world of vows and roses, of quiet mornings and children's laughter, and the other world, the one of shadows, of duty, of unfinished battles that refused to release her. The veil brushed her shoulders like angels' wings, reminding her that beauty still exists even where danger breathes. And she held on to that thought as tightly as she held Michael's hands, because love is sometimes the only anchor in a storm. If in this moment you feel the weight of her choice, if your heart beats a little faster with hers, then let this story breathe in your soul. Sometimes love is not soft, it is fierce, it is brave, it is the light that survives even in the deepest night. And if these words bring warmth to you, if they remind you that hope can rise even when the past tries to steal it away, I invite you to stay with me, to let this journey unfold in your heart. Leave a trace of your voice in the comments, share your thoughts, and if you feel the energy of this story touching something inside you, a gentle like or a quiet subscribe will help this tale continue its healing path to others who might need it. Together we can weave a circle of hope, a small light that keeps growing. And as she stood there, caught between the love that steadied her and the shadows that called her name, the story of Katerina was only just beginning. For every ending we dream, destiny whispers another beginning, and hers was written not only in vows and roses, but in the fire she could not escape. The next step was waiting, already shaping the air around her, ready to change everything forever. The figure in black moved with the measured certainty of someone who did not belong to weddings, someone whose presence carried the hush of command and the weight of storms. Kate felt it immediately, the subtle ripple of danger travelling across the room like a silent wind, brushing against the fragile threads of her happiness. The congregation remained unaware, eyes fixed on roses, candles, and the promise of love. But for her, time fractured. Her pulse steadied, not from calm, but from discipline long ingrained in her blood. The veil, the pearls, the tender rhythm of vows, all these were gentle illusions pressed against the steel reality she had never truly escaped. Michael's thumb traced circles over her knuckles, grounding her in warmth, a healing touch that soothed even as her gaze locked onto the man. He was not a guest. His stride carried the rhythm of military cadence, his eyes scanning every angle of the chapel, as if each shadow might conceal a threat. She knew this walk. She knew the language of it, the quiet urgency that came from men trained to serve orders etched in secrecy. And when his hand brushed an earpiece, when his gaze caught hers with silent recognition, her heart whispered the truth she did not want to face. The world she had buried was back, knocking at the very altar where she had tried to begin anew. She smiled still, luminous for her groom, for her mother, for the gathered souls who saw only love's glow. But deep inside, her mind unfolded the map of danger as naturally as a flower turns toward the sun. 2 exits behind him, possible partner near the sound booth. Yes, there she was, auburn hair, stillness too perfect for an ordinary guest. Coordination, containment, extraction. The terms lived inside her like an old hymn she could never unlearn. And when the subtle vibration of a hidden phone trembled against her thigh, the phone that was supposed to be buried in forgotten drawers, her breath caught, not from fear, but from recognition. Priority alpha, immediate response, lives in imminent danger. The words thundered silently through her body. The bride became the operative again, not by choice, but by the call of blood and vow older than marriage. She remembered the oath she had once taken under moonless skies, where promises were carved not with rings, but with silence and sacrifice. To protect, to fight, to rise whenever shadows threatened the innocent. 3 years of peace, 3 years of healing, of laughter, of warm mornings in Michael's arms, of bookshelves built and sunsets shared. Suddenly they felt like fragile glass, precious but vulnerable to the strike of fate. And now fate had come, wrapped in black suits and urgency, demanding that she step away from everything she loved. Her chest ached as she looked at Michael, his eyes filled with love too vast for words. He thought her still nervous, still trembling with bridal jitters, and his voice, low, tender, infinite in its devotion, asked if she was all right. How could she tell him that she was more than the woman he believed, that beneath the laughter and gentleness there lived a ghost of another life? How could she break his heart with the truth that she was trained not only to build a home, but also to dismantle entire empires of violence? She longed to hold on to this softness, to stay beneath the golden glow of stained glass, to let herself be only Kate Thorne, beloved fiancée. Yet the universe whispered otherwise. The agent raised his hand in a signal she knew well. 3 fingers, thumb pressed across the palm, immediate extraction required. No ordinary code, no bureaucratic urgency. This was the language of catastrophe, of missions that carved history in blood. Her spine stiffened, though her veil fluttered like angel wings in the chapel light. For a moment she felt torn in two, her soul stretched between the sanctuary of love and the battlefield of duty. Her mother's tears in the front pew shimmered with hope. Her future with Michael, built on laughter and soft mornings, stretched like a dream too fragile to hold. Yet behind it all was the echo of old scars, the weight of unfinished wars that would not let her go. The silence when Father Rivers asked if any had reason this union should not proceed was no silence at all. It was the breath before storm, the fragile pause where fate bends and reshapes lives. The man in black stepped forward, voice carrying the sharp finality of orders written in iron. "Ma'am," he said, and though the guests stirred in confusion, she knew the world had shifted forever. Michael's grip tightened protectively, love burning in his gaze, but the truth was already rising, undeniable and merciless. The bride was no longer just a bride. She was being summoned back into the fire, and so in that moment, heavy with roses and prayers, with love and trembling, the past collided with the present, tearing the veil of peace she had fought so hard to weave. Her story was no longer only about vows whispered at an altar. It was about the cost of love when destiny demands sacrifice. And as the echoes of that voice lingered in the sacred air, she knew the next step would demand everything she was, and perhaps everything she loved. The soft petals of her bouquet trembled in her grasp, already preparing to fall as the world called her once more into its storm. Michael's hands, strong from years of building and shaping wood into something lasting, held hers tighter, as though by sheer devotion he could anchor her to the altar. His voice, low and rough with confusion, carried not only the sharp edge of fear, but also the boundless tenderness of a man desperate to protect what he loved. "Kate, what's happening?" The words were a whisper, but for her they weighed heavier than gunfire. His question was not about agents, not about codes or enemies. It was about her, about the truth he had always felt humming beneath her silences, the parts of her soul she had never fully shown. She had always told herself that love could be built on fragments, that she could hide her past behind gentle smiles and the warm routine of morning coffee. But Michael had seen more than she thought. He had noticed the way she always sat facing the door in restaurants, the way she woke suddenly at the faintest sound in the night, the way she carried her body as though danger was always one heartbeat away. He never pressed, never demanded answers. His love was patient, healing, like spring rain falling over old scars. Yet now the storm had arrived, and patience could no longer shield him from truth. Her lips parted, trembling with words that refused to be gentle. "Michael," she breathed, her voice breaking like porcelain. "I'm not who you think I am." The confession rang in the chapel like shattered glass. invisible but devastating. For a moment the entire world seemed to lean closer. The rows of family and friends, her mother with tears still damp on her cheeks, Father Rivers frozen in bewildered silence. Time itself held its breath, waiting for the man at her side to decide whether love could bear such weight. Michael's eyes searched hers, brown depths filled with devotion, but now flickering with disbelief, with the ache of betrayal he did not want to feel. He loved her beyond reason, beyond logic, yet even love bends under the shock of secrets long kept. "Then who are you?" he asked, voice hoarse, and it was as though every memory they had built trembled, fragile as glass in his hands. She wanted to give him soft answers, to weave words that would heal instead of wound. But there was no poetry strong enough to disguise the truth. She was not just Kate, the woman who baked bread on Sunday mornings and laughed with the neighbors. She was Katerina Thorne, trained in shadows, shaped by missions no one was ever meant to know. The agent's voice cut into the silence like cold steel. Viktor Zaitsev. Scarlet Thunder. Lives already lost. Words that tasted like ash. Words she thought she had left behind forever. She felt Michael stiffen, his protective warmth hardening into shock as he tried to grasp a world that had always hovered just beyond the edges of her smiles. His anger rose, sharp but laced with grief. Who is he? Who are you, Kate? What life have you been living while I— His voice cracked, and she could not bear the hurt laced through it. He had built a future on her silences, and now those silences fell apart in his hands. She wanted to scream that her love was true, that every kiss, every laugh, every shared night was real, even if shadows clung to her past. She wanted to beg him to believe that the woman who chose him was not a disguise, but her truest self, born in his embrace. But the coded vibration against her thigh reminded her time was running out, lives already weighed in the balance. Her heart splintered between the man she loved and the ghosts demanding her return. She had been trained to choose the mission, to sacrifice everything for the greater good. Yet never had sacrifice felt so unbearable. Her mother's voice rose softly from the pew, fragile yet unyielding. "Katerina Marie, tell me right now what this is." Her mother, who had buried a husband fallen to duty, who had raised a daughter forged in silence, who had always known in her bones that shadows would one day return. The weight of that gaze, filled with sorrow and pride, pressed harder than any commander's orders. Kate's eyes blurred with tears she could not shed. Michael's grip loosened at last, not from lack of love, but from the heavy truth dawning in his soul. His voice softened, breaking in places, yet carrying the kind of selflessness that cut deeper than any blade. "If people will die without you, if you are the only one who can stop it, then you have to go." His words were both permission and heartbreak, a gift of love that demanded he shatter his own happiness. She felt her chest burn with unbearable pain. He was giving her away to the very shadows that had stolen so much from her before. Her tears threatened, but she swallowed them, choosing instead to memorize him. The curve of his jaw, the warmth of his hand, the brown eyes that had given her more peace than any mission ever could. She cupped his face, her fingers tracing the lines she had come to love. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice trembling yet fierce with love. "I never wanted you to see this part of me." His lips brushed her palm, a kiss soft and breaking all at once. The bouquet slipped from her trembling hands, white roses falling in slow motion to the marble floor, petals scattering like fragile echoes of promises unkept. She stepped back, the satin of her dress whispering against the altar steps, each sound a quiet farewell. Around them, gasps rose. The congregation caught between confusion and fear, yet none of it mattered. Only Michael's eyes mattered, watching her with a pain so profound it carved itself into her soul. The agent's tone sharpened, commanding urgency, extraction, target mobile, lives at risk. The words echoed like iron bells tolling the end of her dream. She turned once more to Michael, her heart breaking under the weight of his gaze. "I love you," she said, every syllable carrying the weight of a lifetime. "Remember that, no matter what happens." Then she walked away from the altar, away from the vows she had longed to speak, into the path where love and duty collided like storm against stone. Each step was a wound, each breath a farewell, yet also a promise, that no matter how deep the shadows, her love for him would remain, fierce and eternal. And even as the chapel doors opened to swallow her in blinding light, the warmth of Michael's hand lingered in hers, healing her even in absence, reminding her of the life she was fighting to protect. The air outside burned brighter, sharper, carrying the weight of rotors in the distance and the scent of iron inevitability. She was no longer only a bride, she was once more the ghost, called back into the fire. But in her chest, love burned like a secret vow, a vow that would guide her through every shadow, every storm. The choice had been made, and though her heart broke with it, her soul understood. Love itself had commanded her to go. The black SUV waited like a shadow at the chapel steps, its engine humming low, a beast crouched to devour the future she had tried to claim for herself. Kate's heels clicked softly against the stone, the sound too fragile for the storm gathering around her. Behind her, the echo of wedding bells lingered with the fragrance of roses. But before her stretched the metallic scent of duty, sharp as steel, unavoidable as fate. The gown she wore, white satin embroidered with her grandmother's pearls, fluttered against the breeze, a relic of promises she could not keep. Yet even as the silk brushed against her skin, the weight of concealed weapons beneath reminded her who she truly was, not merely a bride, but an operative forged in silence and fire. The agents flanked her with quiet precision, guiding her into the vehicle as though she were both treasure and prisoner. The door slammed shut, sealing her away from the tender warmth of the chapel into the cold rhythm of engines and encrypted transmissions. She sat upright, posture instinctively balanced, eyes scanning mirrors and windows, even as her heart bled for the man she had left at the altar. Michael's face lingered like a soft echo, his brown eyes carved into her chest, his whispered, "I love you," haunting her more than any enemy's threat. She pressed her fingers briefly against the diamond on her hand, feeling its hard brilliance like a wound that glowed with love instead of blood. The female agent handed her a secure tablet, the screen illuminating the cabin with the cold glow of maps and intelligence. Viktor Zaitsva's face appeared again, older, silver threaded through his hair, but his eyes still sharp, still cruel. Kate's pulse did not quicken. It steadied, as if her body remembered the rhythm of combat before her mind consented. She had hunted him once, across continents, through alleyways thick with smoke and markets heavy with whispers. She had come close, too close, and lost him like smoke between her fingers. Now he had returned, as if summoned by her very vow to leave that life behind. Her fingers brushed the tactical vest folded beside her, heavy with the scent of oil and Kevlar. Slowly, almost reverently, she drew it across her gown, strapping the armor over lace and silk. The absurdity of it would have broken a lesser heart, but for her it was a mirror. Two lives stitched into one fragile body, torn between the warmth of vows and the cold of war. She adjusted the Glock at her thigh, the weapon sliding naturally into her palm as though it had been waiting all along. The juxtaposition was jarring, pearls at her throat, steel in her hands, love in her chest, death in her grasp. The male agent in the driver's seat glanced into the mirror, his voice clipped. Inside job. Convoy details were classified at the highest level. If Zaitsev knew, then someone fed him the information. His words cut into her chest like shards of betrayal. A leak meant rot in the very walls of safety, enemies disguised as allies. It meant the game was no longer simple. Trust itself had become a battlefield. Her phone buzzed, her personal one, not the encrypted line. She hesitated before unlocking it, knowing what awaited. A message from Michael. "Whatever you're doing, be safe. I love you." Just 7 words, yet they felt like an embrace, like the soft weight of his hand on her back as they watched stars in the quiet Wyoming night. Tears pricked her eyes, but she forced herself to power the device down. Personal ties were a weakness in missions like this. She had learned it in blood, when a fleeting thought of home once cost her comrades their lives. Still, her heart rebelled. To love him was not weakness. It was the very reason she fought. The SUV climbed the mountain road, curves sharp, shadows stretching long across the fading sky. At the ridge's crest, a forward operating base appeared like a scar carved into the alpine meadow. Vehicles, antennas, the rhythmic blades of a Blackhawk already stirring the air. Soldiers moved with mechanical precision, but Kate's trained eye caught it instantly. Their fear. Their steps were too quick, their glances too sharp, their breaths uneven. They knew what they faced, and the weight of it pressed into the atmosphere like thunderclouds. Admiral Stone stood at the center, silver hair pulled tight, blue eyes carrying both steel and sorrow. Kate stepped from the SUV, the wind whipping her veil into wild banners as if heaven itself mourned. She saluted with crisp perfection, though inside her chest everything cracked. Stone returned the gesture, her gaze lingering for just a heartbeat longer than protocol allowed. "Kate," she said, voice low, steady, but edged with the gravity of storms. "It's worse than we feared." Inside the command trailer, maps sprawled like wounded skin across tables, red pins marking enemy movement, black pins marking deaths. The monitor flickered with satellite imagery, though gaps like blind spots pulsed across the terrain. "He's jamming us," Stone said. "We're blind where we need to see most. Our drones are gone. Recon teams silent. We believe he's within a 10-mile radius, working on a dispersal device." Kate's gaze landed on the photographs of wreckage, the blurred heat signatures of enemies hidden among mountains. Her chest tightened, but not from fear. It was the cold certainty of impossible odds. the familiar companion she had once thought she had buried forever. "What's the objective?" she asked, voice steady, though her heart longed to break at the thought of Michael still waiting, still believing. "Eliminate Zaitsev. Recover the material. Whatever it takes," Stone replied, her eyes unflinching. "He knows you're coming, Kate. And he's been waiting for you. This isn't just an attack. It's personal." Kate's fingers brushed the torn edge of her gown beneath the armor, the delicate thread fraying beneath the weight of her weapons. Morning had dressed her as a bride. Evening dressed her as a soldier. Yet within her, she was both, woven together by love and pain, by healing she had found in Michael's arms, and the duty she could not escape. She drew in a breath of mountain air, the scent of pine, sharp and clean, almost merciful. For a moment it soothed her, reminded her of nights by the lake, of laughter, of the kind of peace worth bleeding for. Her gaze hardened. She turned toward the helicopter, its rotors beating like the pulse of fate. She would walk into the fire because she must. But she carried with her more than training, more than orders. She carried love, fierce and unyielding, the kind of love that heals even in the darkest war. And as she stepped into the thrum of engines and wind, she whispered inside herself a vow stronger than any mission code, that no matter what shadows awaited her, she would return to Michael. She would return to love. The helicopter lifted, blades carving the sky open. Below, the meadow shrank, the chapel bells already a memory fading into the dusk. Ahead, mountains rose like ancient guardians, their peaks veiled in storm clouds. And between those ridges, somewhere in the gathering dark, Victor Zaitsev waited. The battle of shadows and love had begun, and every beat of her heart carried her deeper into it. The mountains stretched beneath her like a living tapestry, vast ridges stitched with pine and stone, valleys running deep with shadows, peaks crowned in silver cloud. From the helicopter's open door, Kate breathed the air of altitude, sharp and cold, carrying the scent of resin and earth. It filled her lungs with a strange kind of peace, the healing kind that comes from remembering the world is bigger than war. Yet that same wind carried the weight of inevitability. Somewhere below, Victor Zaitsev had built his fortress, and the storm between them was drawing closer with every beat of the rotor. She checked her gear with the precision of ritual. Carbine secured across her chest, sidearm snug at her thigh, blades sheathed, grenades counted, comms tested. Her fingers moved mechanically, but inside her chest a softer rhythm played. Michael's voice, Michael's touch, Michael's love. That simple message on her phone, "Be safe, I love you," was carved into her soul now. It warmed her like a candle against the encroaching dark, a reminder that even amid weapons and steel she carried light within her. The helicopter dropped lower, weaving between ridges as rain began to fall, a delicate drizzle that clung to her veil and streaked across her armor. She pressed the fabric of her gown tighter beneath the tactical vest, its once immaculate silk now smudged with grease and dust. Still, she kept it on, not as disguise, but as symbol. The dress was not weakness, it was a promise, a reminder that she was more than the shadows, more than the ghost they called back. She was a woman who had chosen love, and even here that choice wrapped around her like armor far stronger than Kevlar. Her team sat opposite her, Martinez, young and earnest, hiding nerves with determination, and Thompson, steady-eyed, his silence heavy with calculation. They glanced at her gown with fleeting disbelief, But respect overruled doubt. Reputation speaks louder than attire, and Kate's reputation had already become legend whispered through federal corridors. Ghost 7, they called her. To them, she was not a bride in silk. She was the one who survived. The helicopter touched down on a narrow clearing, rotors clawing the air, thunder rolling from the storm above. Kate descended first, boots crunching against wet stone, senses sharpening instantly. Every sound became detail, the whisper of wind through pines, the trickle of a stream somewhere nearby, the absence of bird song, always a warning. Martinez and Thompson landed beside her, weapons raised, eyes scanning. "Com check," she whispered, her voice low, steady. Their affirmations came crisp, but she caught the tremor in Martinez's breathing. She gave him a glance, not of command, but of reassurance. "Slow your breath," her eyes seemed to say. "Steady your heart. You are not alone." He exhaled, shoulders loosening slightly. Healing comes not only through words, but through presence, and hers was enough. They moved through the forest, each step deliberate, Kate leading with the silence of someone who had spent years perfecting invisibility. Pine needles softened their approach, but rocks betrayed them if weight shifted carelessly. She guided them with hand signals, her gown brushing against bark and earth, until it no longer looked like a bride's attire, but something transformed. Warrior's silk painted with the forest's colors. An hour into their approach, Kate stopped. Her hand rose, a closed fist. The team froze instantly. She tilted her head, listening. There, faint, the scrape of leather on stone, the shift of weight not belonging to animal, but man. Her eyes narrowed. A sentry, 200 meters uphill, waiting, watching. She motioned Thompson into overwatch, then ghosted forward with Martinez at her side. The forest closed around them, dim, alive with the smell of wet moss. The sentry appeared as predicted, crouched behind a fallen log, radio wire trailing from his ear, weapon loose in his hands, but readiness humming in his posture. Young, disciplined, trained. Kate's heart ached faintly. He was someone's son, someone's brother, perhaps even someone's love. But in this equation, mercy could mean catastrophe. The weight of thousands of lives pressed heavier than his. She moved with precision, swift and silent, eliminating the threat before breath could become alarm. The body slumped into silence, his weapon slipping to damp soil. Martinez's eyes widened at the cold efficiency, but Kate met his gaze, steady and warm, reminding him with a glance, "This is not cruelty. This is duty. Hold your heart steady." They pressed onward, deeper into Zeitz's killing ground. The terrain grew treacherous, rocks slick beneath the rain, tunnels yawning like mouths waiting to swallow them. The Copper Creek facility loomed in the distance, its rusted towers shrouded in mist, lights flickering like eyes of predators. Through her scope, Kate counted patrols. Disciplined, deliberate, too many for comfort. Zeitz had prepared well. He was not just defending ground, he was defending destiny. She knelt in the mud, tracing paths with her finger across the digital map. "We can't go frontal," she murmured, almost to herself. "Too exposed. He's expecting that. The tunnels, here, old mining shafts, risky, but our best chance." Her voice carried no doubt, only calm. Calm was healing. calm steadied the air around her. The agents nodded, trusting. Before descending into darkness, Kate paused. She looked toward the ridge behind them, where the sky opened briefly, revealing a shaft of golden light through storm clouds. She closed her eyes, inhaling. For one fragile heartbeat, she was not an operative or a bride or a soldier. She was simply Kate, a woman who had known love, who had tasted peace, who had walked with Michael by the lake under starlight. She let that memory settle inside her, a balm against the shadows awaiting. Then she opened her eyes, blue as ice, fierce as fire. "Stay close," she whispered. "From here on, everything is a trap until proven otherwise." The tunnels yawned before them, black as eternity, echoing with the hum of unseen machinery. Kate stepped first, the silk of her dress catching against stone, her weapon raised, her heartbeat steady. Behind her, Martinez and Thompson followed into the depths. The mountains swallowed them whole, sealing away light, carrying them closer to the enemy who had haunted her dreams and was waiting now, with patience sharpened into knives. Yet even as shadows pressed in, the warmth of Michael's love remained within her, glowing like a lantern she carried into the dark. It healed her, sustained her, whispered of a tomorrow she still intended to claim. And so she walked deeper, each step silent but filled with purpose, toward the heart of danger where love and war would meet, and only one would survive the night. The tunnels swallowed her whole, stone pressing in on every side, the air thick with damp earth and the metallic tang of recent disturbance. Kate moved with the silence of memory, every footstep deliberate, every breath measured. The beam of her tactical light cut through the dark in narrow arcs, illuminating old timber supports slick with condensation, cobwebs trembling at their passing, boot prints pressed fresh into the dust. Victor Zaitz had been here, his men carving paths into the abandoned veins of the mountain, twisting its silence into another labyrinth of war. Behind her, Martinez followed close, breath heavy with nerves but steadied by the rhythm of her movements. Thompson lingered at the rear, eyes sweeping back, every sense strained. Kate raised her hand, and they halted. She listened, not with ears alone, but with every nerve. A faint hum, unnatural in such depths, reached her. The drone of machinery hidden deeper within. The tunnels were no longer ruins. They were alive, transformed into arteries, feeding a monstrous plan. At the next bend, faint light spilled across stone. A sentry waited, head bowed over a radio, posture relaxed, yet sharp enough to strike in an instant. Kate slid forward, every motion a ghost's caress. The young man never raised his eyes before she silenced him, her hand steady, her heart heavy. She searched his gear quickly, fingers brushing a laminated map. She unfolded it, scanning marks of red and green, checkpoints, caches, choke points. Zeitz's meticulous hand had laid a trap across every passage. This was no hasty refuge. It was a fortress carved for one purpose, to lure her here. Martinez's whisper trembled. "We're walking into a kill zone." Kate's gaze met his, calm, firm, carrying warmth like a steadying flame. "Yes, and we'll walk through it together." Her words, though quiet, settled over him like healing balm, slowing his panic, reminding him that fear could be carried without surrender. They pressed deeper, the tunnels twisting downward, their path lit only by her light and the occasional flicker of artificial lamps strung by Zaitsev's men. Hours stretched like years, each corner turned with weapons raised, each silence heavier than the last. And then the passage opened. The chamber yawned before them, vast as a cathedral, roof lost in shadow. Fluorescent lights cast pale fire across industrial scaffolds, wires trailing like veins, screens flickering with coded streams. At the center stood the device, metallic cylinder, sleek, ominous, pulsing faintly with energy. Kate's blood chilled. This was no crude bomb. It was crafted, engineered with precision only brilliance or madness could create. The air hummed with its presence, heavy with the unspoken promise of devastation. Her eyes swept higher, catching movement along catwalks. Heat signatures lined the periphery. Mercenaries stationed like statues of war, weapons trained on every entrance. Too many, too prepared. And then she saw him, Viktor Zaitsev. Tall, lean, hair silver at the temples, but eyes burning with the same cold fire she remembered. He stood beside the weapon as though it were his altar, his creation, his crowning glory. "Katerina Thorne," his voice rang out, smooth, accented, carrying mockery and recognition. "Or should I call you Mrs. Brennan, though I see the ceremony was inconveniently interrupted." His smile curved like a blade. He knew everything. The chapel, the vows, Michael. Every piece of her fragile peace had been exposed to his gaze. Kate stepped into the light, weapon raised, but not trembling. "Victor," she answered, steady, even warm in its edge. "You never could resist theatre." Her voice carried across the chamber, calm despite the storm within. She felt Michael's face in her heart, the chapel's golden light still glowing like an ember. It gave her strength, healing her even here in this cathedral of ruin. Zaitsev spread his arms as if welcoming her to a stage. "You chased me across continents, haunted my steps, nearly ended me in Budapest. But you were always too late, too restrained. Today you are exactly where I wanted you. My audience is watching, contractors, governments, revolutionaries. They see you, Ghost 7, America's most elusive shadow, struggling here. And when you fail, they will know my creations cannot be stopped." His words sliced through the chamber, meant to unsteady her. But Kate's lips curved faintly, not in fear, but in recognition. He misunderstood. He thought her bound by pride, by legacy. But she was bound by love. She was not fighting for governments or reputation. She was fighting for the warmth of mornings with Michael, for the laughter of children not yet born, for the peace her mother prayed she would find. That was strength no mercenary could comprehend. "I'm not here for theatre, Victor," she said, her voice soft but carrying, like silk threaded with steel. "I'm here to end this. And you're right about one thing. Budapest taught me how you think. You believe cold logic wins. You believe fear is stronger than love. That's your mistake." Her eyes, pale as ice, yet warm as summer skies, locked on his. "Love changes everything." Zaitsev's smile faltered for the first time, a crack in the mask. He barked an order, and gunfire erupted, flames strobing across the chamber. Kate moved with precision, her gown flowing like a ghost as she darted into shadow, returning fire with a calm fury. Martinez covered the flank, Thompson's shots cracked from above, but Kate was already weaving between bullets and steel. The mercenaries faltered, not at her weapon, but at her presence, a white silhouette in silk and armor, moving with a grace that belonged neither to war nor to weddings, but to something beyond both. The fight surged, deafening, endless. Yet within her, warmth remained. Each breath carried Michael's voice. Each heartbeat carried his love, and it steadied her like a compass, pointing through chaos. She reached the device, hands brushing its surface, eyes scanning its cruel complexity. Anti-tampering triggers lined every seam. Zaitsev had built not only a weapon, but a trap, daring her to touch, daring her to fail. His voice echoed above the chaos. "Even if you stop me, Katerina, you've already given them what they wanted. Proof that my device draws the attention of legends. Proof that it cannot be ignored." She ignored him, hands steady, breath even. Fear had no place here. Love guided her fingers as much as training. Love reminding her of gentle mornings, of healing laughter, of vows left unspoken but not forgotten. Around her, Martinez fought bravely, Thompson's cover fire sharp, but the heart of the battle was hers alone. The chamber trembled with violence, with fury, with shadows thick as smoke, yet in her chest warmth glowed brighter. Kate was more than a ghost. She was a woman who had chosen light, who carried healing in her soul, even when carrying death in her hands. And as she moved toward Zaitsev, the storm of bullets between them, she knew this was not only a mission, it was the final confrontation between shadow and love. And she would not falter. The air cracked with gunfire, sparks showered like cruel confetti, the weapon hummed with threat. Kate's heart held steady, carrying Michael's name like prayer, carrying hope like shield. The past and future collided in that cavern of stone and steel, and only one truth remained. Love was stronger than fear, stronger than revenge, stronger than Victor Zaitsev. And with that truth burning inside her, she stepped deeper into the storm, ready to end what had haunted her for too long. Darkness shattered into chaos. The chamber's lights flickered once, then burst as Kate's charge ripped the power grid apart. The vast cavern plunged into blackness, broken only by the strobing flare of gunfire. Muzzle flashes painted jagged lightning across the walls, illuminating fragments of a surreal tableau. Mercenaries stumbling blind, Martinez pressing forward with a courage greater than his years, Thompson's silhouette, firm in overwatch. In the center of it all, Kate moved like something born of both shadow and light, her gown a pale phantom swirling through the smoke. Her night vision ignited the room in green clarity. Every flicker of movement became a map in her mind. The mercenary on the catwalk, fumbling with his scope, the heavy gun crew struggling to swing their weapon in the dark, the glint of Zaitsev's silver hair as he cursed and shouted orders that no longer cut clean through the chaos. He had underestimated her. He had forgotten that she learned to fight in places where the night itself was an ally. And here, in this cathedral of ruin, she was not a bride, not a ghost, but both. Something more than either. She swept forward, shots precise, each breath a prayer whispered not to God or country, but to Michael. His face rose before her with every step, his love the tether that held her steady while the world tried to unravel. Even as she moved with lethal grace, her heart clung to him, healing her with its quiet warmth. She thought of his hands roughened by carpentry, of his smile that softened every scar she carried, of the way his voice wrapped around her name as if it were precious. It gave her a strength Zaitsev could never touch. A mercenary lunged from the shadows, knife flashing. Kate pivoted, silk and lace sweeping like water as her blade met his. The clash was silent, swift, final. She eased him down gently, a brief act of mercy in the storm before her eyes lifted to the device again, looming, humming, threatening. Its surface gleamed under the glow of emergency lights, riddled with sensors, each one a promise of disaster if touched wrong. The trap was exquisite. Victor had poured genius and madness into it, but she had not survived this long by surrendering to fear. Above her, his voice cut through the cacophony. "Do you see, Katerina? They're watching. Every second of this chaos proves me right. My weapon is legend now, because you are here to try and stop it. Even if you win, you lose." His laughter rang hollow, though brittle at the edges. For the first time, she heard not triumph, but desperation. He had risked everything to draw her here, and in doing so, he had exposed himself. Kate's breath steadied. "No, Victor," she whispered into the dark, words meant for him, for the buyers hidden behind encrypted screens, but most of all, for herself. The world doesn't belong to men who trade in fear. It belongs to those who choose love. Her voice carried soft and warm, threading through the roar of gunfire like a healing hymn, a note of humanity in the blackness. Martinez heard it, steadied by it, his next shots fired with surer aim. Thompson's jaw tightened, his will renewed. Even in war, love could fortify. She closed the distance, weaving through sparks and shadow, until she stood before the device. Her fingers traced its cold surface, reading its language of traps and wires. Her heart raced, but not with panic. Instead, she thought of vows never spoken, of promises left hanging in a church bathed in light. She thought of Michael, waiting, believing, loving. And she knew she could not let this machine steal their future. Zaitsev screamed from the catwalks, his composure cracking. "Don't touch it! You'll kill us all!" His words betrayed the truth. Even he feared his own creation. That fear was her window. She worked quickly, hands guided by training, intuition, and something deeper, an inner compass forged by every choice she had ever made between shadow and light. Each cut of wire was a breath of faith. Each adjustment was a vow spoken in silence. Time bled away, shouts rising around her, but her focus never wavered. For her, the world narrowed to this one act: dismantle the nightmare, reclaim the dawn. Then came the moment she had dreaded, a trigger buried deep, impossible to bypass. A choice written in steel: detonate or leave it armed. The simplest solution was sacrifice, one she had always been prepared to make. She could feel her thumb hovering over the arming switch of her thermal charge, ready to burn everything, including herself, to ashes. Her chest tightened with the weight of it, of leaving Michael at the altar not just for a day, but forever. And then a voice cracked through the static of her comms, impossibly familiar. Michael. "Kate, if you can hear me, don't do it. They told me the truth. It's not what you think. The plutonium isn't real. It's a trap, for him, for you. You don't have to die." Her breath caught. Tears stung her eyes in the dark. For 1 second, the war fell away, and only love remained, warm and healing and fierce. His voice anchored her, pulling her back from the edge. She lowered the detonator, shoulders trembling, heart aching with gratitude. Love had found her even here, in the belly of shadow. Victor's scream echoed, raw and furious, as federal forces breached above, flooding the chamber with overpowering light. His mercenaries faltered, collapsing under the sudden tide. He had lost, not to superior firepower, but to something he could never command. The bond between two souls who refused to let fear win. Kate stood tall amidst the chaos, gown torn, armor scarred, eyes burning bright. Around her, the storm broke apart, scattering into echoes. The device stood powerless, its silence a testament to her defiance. She had chosen not just to fight, but to live. For Michael, for love, for the healing promise of tomorrow. The air filled with dust and the sound of surrendering enemies, but within her chest, warmth glowed brighter than any dawn. The fight was not yet over, but the tide had turned. And in her heart, she carried the certainty that when the storm finally passed, she would walk back to the altar, back into Michael's arms, and speak the vows destiny had once tried to steal. The mountain seemed to exhale when it was over, a long, trembling sigh of stone releasing its secrets into the night. The tunnels lay behind her now, littered with the ashes of betrayal and the echoes of men who had believed fear would always triumph. Kate stepped into the clearing beneath a sky of silver clouds, her gown shredded, lace frayed, the once pure fabric streaked with earth and soot. Yet to those who saw her, she did not look broken. She looked reborn. Her veil lifted in the wind like a banner of survival, and her eyes, though rimmed with exhaustion, glowed with the soft warmth of someone who had chosen love over vengeance, healing over despair. The helicopters thundered above, but their sound no longer felt like war. It was deliverance. Federal teams swarmed the facility behind her, gathering evidence, securing prisoners, cataloguing the ashes of Zaitsev's ambition. She no longer belonged to that chaos. She had played her part, and now she stood outside of it, like someone stepping from shadow into light. Martinez approached, weary but alive, his face bearing the fragile pride of a man who had walked through fire and somehow returned. "It's finished," he said, though his voice carried disbelief. Kate gave him a small smile, warm and steady. "It's finished for me, too." Admiral Stone came forward, her uniform immaculate even against the mountain's rough breath. For years she had been Command Iron, the voice that pulled Kate back whenever shadows threatened to consume the world. Now she placed her hand lightly on Kate's shoulder, her voice gentler than duty usually allowed. "Ghost 7 is retired. Permanently. You've earned your peace." Kate nodded once, the weight of those words seeping into her like balm. Peace. Such a fragile thing, such a rare gift. She felt its outline pressing softly against her chest, shaped by Michael's love, shaped by the quiet life she had almost lost. When the helicopter lifted her once more, the rotors scattering pine needles like blessings, she did not think of weapons or missions. She thought of roses still waiting in the chapel, of candles that had burned low while family and friends prayed in silence, of Michael's eyes when he told her she had to go, even though it broke him. Those memories carried her homeward, each beat of the rotor like a heartbeat, drawing her closer to the man she loved. The chapel's doors stood open when she returned, light spilling into the night like gold pouring into darkness. Inside, the congregation had waited, not out of obligation, but out of love. They had seen her vanish into storm and shadow, yet their faith in her remained. Her mother stood tall at the front, veil in her trembling hands, tears streaming down a face carved with both fear and pride. And at the altar, Michael waited. His suit was no longer immaculate. His shoulders bore the weight of hours filled with worry. But his eyes shone with the same unbreakable love that had carried her through every shot, every step, every shadow. Kate walked down the aisle again, her gown patched hastily by unseen hands, still bearing stains of war. Yet no one gasped now. No one whispered. They watched her not as a bride interrupted, but as a woman returned. She felt the warmth of every gaze, the healing tide of a community that chose to see her not for the secret she had carried, but for the love she carried still. When she reached Michael, her hands trembled as they slipped into his. He did not flinch at the scars or the stains. He only held her, strong and sure, as though nothing had changed. "I'm sorry about the interruption," she whispered, her voice cracking with relief. He leaned closer, smiling through the salt of tears. "Promise me one thing," he murmured. "Next time someone needs saving, let them find another bride." She laughed, soft and full, the sound carrying through the chapel like a hymn of healing, loosening the hearts of everyone who heard it. The vows were spoken at last, not as fragile promises, but as truths tempered by fire. When Father Rivers pronounced them husband and wife, the stained glass caught the last breath of the Wyoming sun, bathing their faces in gold. Michael kissed her, and in that kiss was everything: love reborn, peace reclaimed, healing that would carry them into every dawn to come. The reception flowed until morning, laughter rising where once there had been fear. Stories were told, carefully edited, of where the bride had vanished to, but no one pressed for details. What mattered was the way Michael looked at her as though she were his entire world, the way her hand found his as though it had always belonged there. Even Admiral Stone raised a glass, not to missions or victories, but to courage, the courage to choose love even when the world demanded sacrifice. As dawn broke, Kate and Michael slipped away, the car carrying them down quiet roads lined with trees whispering in the wind. She leaned into him, her eyes heavy, her heart light. For the first time in years, she felt free. Not because the shadows had vanished, but because love had taught her how to live beyond them. The ghost had finally laid itself to rest, and what remained was Kate Brennan, a bride, a wife, a woman who had chosen to heal, to hope, to love. If this story has touched your heart, if the journey of love and shadows, of vows broken and vows kept, has given you even a fragment of warmth, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Let your voice join the circle of hope we are weaving together. A gentle like, a heartfelt comment, a simple subscribe. They are not just gestures, but echoes of connection, threads of healing light, carrying stories like this one to others who may need them. May love guide you as it guided Kate. May peace wrap softly around you, and may you always remember, even in the darkest night, love is the light that leads us home.